Anthony, hello. Ronnie.
Yeah.
Okay, I think from my end on the responses from the form, we
Yeah.
expected at least 18 people. So I think if
80,
Anthony can hear me, we can begin now.
okay. Anthony, if you're there, you could
Okay,
start off.
so good evening, everyone. Yeah, it's pleasing to see all of you here. Get to learn. So I welcome you to pay attention, to ask questions, and yeah, to enjoy this moment. So I'll call Ronnie to welcome.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So, my name is Ochieng Roni. I'm a second year student pursuing biomedical engineering, and I'll be taking you through programming fundamentals with Python today. So, I would like to start us off with a quote from Einstein. If you can't explain it simple, you don't understand it better. So, in this webinar series, I'm trying to demystify Python, a programming language, in the simplest manner. So, let us start off with what is Python. So, Python is an object-oriented and high-level programming language. So, object-oriented in the sense that it's based around data, and high-level meaning it's easier for humans to understand. So, the language was first launched in 1992 by Guido von Rossum, and by the way, it's built in a relatively intuitive manner so that it's easier to write and understand. So, Python is used by a number of organizations in the world, such as NASA, Google, Netflix, Spotify, and countless more. Other organizations use Python as their programming language to perform some tasks. So, I'm sure, according to in 2021, basic in the trend list, Python is the second most popular programming language in the world after JavaScript. So there are a number of reasons why Python is the most commonest programming language. So the first reason is because of its ease of use. So for those who are relatively new to programming, Python can be an excellent first step because it's easy to learn and its syntax is similar to English. So that brings us to the second reason why Python is so popular. Its syntax is so simple, it's relatively easy to read and understand. Also, Python has a thriving community, a group of developers who maintain, support, and develop the ecosystem, adding their own contribution to the libraries, which refines libraries and packages much better, making it easier for people to use packages. Yeah, and also Python is quite versatile because it has a number of uses. You could use it in visualization of data, artificial intelligence, or web development. We're going to talk about later the uses of Python. So, why should anyone learn Python? So, at the moment, based on numbers, they say statistics. We tend to look most of the times at statistics. So Python is so popular at the moment, but why should we learn it? So the number one reason why you should learn Python is because the Python developers are in demand. Because you see, pretty much right now, a number of fields uh, are integrating smart systems into their initial systems. AI, the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning. So Python developers are quite in demand, and also there are many job opportunities. So given that Python can be used in many emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning, that owes it to the opportunities that Python is creating. So there are quite a number of opportunities that are emerging. That's why you should learn Python today. So I'd like us to look at what Python is used for. So the first use of Python is basically AI and machine learning, and this is quite synonymous with a number of you. If you are pretty much acquainted with the tech world, you'll, you'll know that AI and machine learning is the next big thing. So basically, artificial intelligence is the development of computer systems that perform tasks that require human intelligence. So Python is such a stable, flexible, and simple programming language. So it's perfect for various ML, machine learning, and AI projects. So yeah, that's the AI and machine learning bit. So also Python is used for data analytics. So much like AI and machine learning, analytics is another rapidly developing field that utilizes Python programming. Yeah. So also Python is used in data analytics. It is also used in data visualization, in coming up with charts, bar graphs. So this pretty much revolves around NumPys, pandas, some of the libraries in Python that are used to visualize data. So this is also a popular and developing area of interest that Python comes in and helps in visualizing data. So also Python could be used in creating programming applications spanning around graphical user interface and APIs. So you could create an API, an application programming interface, or you could also create a graphical user interface. So for the graphical user interface, in Python you use Tincta. So more on later on, you're going to work with such tools and you will appreciate the power of Python. So also Python is greatly used in web development. There are a number of web development frameworks that one can do web development with, spanning around Django. We have Pyramid and Flask. Yeah, so these frameworks have been used to create sites and services such as Spotify. Actually, Instagram, the app that everyone likes, was basically built using Django. So Python comes chips in handy in web development, and it makes work easier. Yeah. So Python is also used in something as something we term as search engine optimization. So it's quite a powerful tool in developing in ensuring that sites are indexed well in the search engine. So there are quite a number of uses of Python, but I majored on these six, but there are a number which involves game development, shell tool scripting, networking. Yeah, so Python has a number of uses. That's why we're saying that Python is quite versatile. So I know, since we are demystifying the basics of Python, one might be asking him or herself, like, where will I get to put the skills or the knowledge that I've gotten about Python into practice? So I thought of having a section of whereby we are going to have Python projects for beginners that will help us understand better some of the concepts that we are going to tackle ahead. So uh, the number of projects that I had in mind spanned around building a guessing game, design a text-based adventure game, creating a simple Python calculator, write a simple interactive quiz, and building an alarm clock. So I hope that in the part 2 series, we are going to try out, I think we are going to try the first option, which is going to which is building a guessing game, so that now we can put the skills and knowledge that we are going to tap in from this webinar series into practice. Yeah, so once you have mastered the basics of Python, each of these can challenge you and help you hone the skills you have already learned. So I don't know if each and everyone in the webinar series has installed Python in his machine, but to install Python, you just go to the python.org site. Let me open it. Yeah, so as the site is opening, okay, so this is the python.org site. So yeah, they are giving some of the basic concepts in Python. So to get started, you come to the downloads. So you're going to select like the OS you're running on. If you're running on Windows like I am doing, you select Windows. If you're running on Mac, you select Mac, and other platforms like Linux. Yeah, so that's how you download Mini Python. Then I don't know whether there's anyone who would like to get hands-on, so that maybe he can download. If he hasn't installed Python in his machine, he could install Python right now. But let me just move forward because of time. I have an hour and I have quite a lot to cover. So yeah, so also you're going to see how one can run Python programs. You can write a Python program like in a text file. Then from there you could basically run the program. So you could use an IDE, but basically Python, you could even execute scripts from the terminal. We're going to see how one can do that ahead. So I wanted to explain how the Python how Python runs programs. So I have a flowchart right here whereby, okay, so the source code now is the program that you're going to write. So this source code, the program you have written, is going to be compiled using the Python compiler into bytecode. Because okay, in the first, I forgot to state that Python is an interpreted language. There's an interpreted language and a compiled language. So a compiled language is a language that converts source code to machine code, binary zeros and one, the language that the machine understands, so that it can execute, it can give out the output. So but in the case of Python, the source code is converted to bytecode. So this bytecode is then goes into the interpreter, the Python virtual machine. The Python virtual machine will convert the bytecode into binary code, machine code. Then now you'll see the output. Yeah, so basically that's how a Python program runs. And okay, there are a number of issues with Python. People tend to say that since Python is not closer to the machine, its programs are not that fast. But Python has been optimized to boost speed, because you see a number of libraries or a number of packages in Python have been built using C or the C plus, mostly on the C language. So its speed is relatively fast. So it's not that slow, as much as it's an interpreted language as opposed to a compiled language. Yeah. So let me start you off with the basics of Python. That was just a brief sneak peek of Python. Now we want to take a look into we want to delve deeper into the basics of Python. So I'd like to start you off with the variables in Python. So a variable, basically, you I know pretty much, I don't know whether, I don't want to generalize that everyone is familiar with the programming language, but variables are basically you assign a value to a label using the assignment operator. So in Python, the goodness with Python, you don't have to define the data type. For instance, if I want to I want to declare a variable age with a value of 8. If I was in a programming language like C or C++, I had to define int, then age, then have assigned the value to 8. But in Python, you don't have to define the data type. You just declare the variable and assign the value. So in this case, we have age is equals to 8, then, or alternatively name pivot. So in this case, Python will have to figure out itself age, the data type of the age. So in this case, it will denote that this variable age is an integer, and the name pivot is a string because it's passed in quotes. So a variable name can be composed of characters, numbers, and the underscore character. And you can't just declare variables anyhow. There must be rules on how you declare variables. So in this case, in Python and in a number of programming languages, Python variable names are composed of characters, numbers, and the underscore. So in this case, it's valid to say that name1 age in caps lock, age a11 my underscore name these are valid variables. But now if you come and take a look at this, so 1 2 3, this is not a valid variable, since we have said that it's composed of characters, but it can't start with a number. That's why it's an invalid variable name. Test is invalid because it has a exclamation mark, and name is invalid because it has a percent sign. So take note of that. You can't declare variables starting with a number and having exclamation marks, percent sign, dollar sign. The only sign allowed is the underscore, which is mostly used in Python. Yeah, and also you can't declare a variable using keywords. So below in this slide you can see a number of keywords in Python that you cannot use to declare a variable. For instance, false, none, true, and as. Yeah, the list is, and they're quite a number, but you can't use these keywords to declare variables. This actually is similar to a number of programming languages. You can't declare variables using keywords. Yeah. So okay, so in a majority in Python, programs are composed of modules, and modules contain statements, and the statements return expressions, and expression create and process objects. So in this case, an expression includes like adding two numbers. This is an expression. Then having a string like pivot. This is a Python expression. But a statement is an operation on a value. For instance, like declaring a variable name and assigning a value to it, pivot. Now this is a statement because it's an operation on a value. You see, you have declared this variable name and you're assigning a name to it. Also printing the name, which is going to print out pivot, is a statement. Yeah. So yeah, you could equally comment out a number of lines that you want to comment out. Then you could do single line commenting. You could also do multi-line commenting using as shown below. We are going to see that clearly when I open the IDE. So everything, okay, also in Python you should know that everything indented belongs to a block. So we are going to see when you're declaring functions, the statements that come in the function are going to be indented, meaning that they belong to one block. So Python, when it's executing, it will execute it as a whole block. Also control statements, condition block, or a function, or classes. Yeah, so Python has a number of built-in data types, which includes integers, strings, floats, complex for complex numbers, bool for booleans, list for lists, tuple for tuples, range for ranges, dict for dictionary, set for sets. So you can create a variable of a specific type by using the class constructor, but in this case, in most of the cases, you won't be like, because Python can figure out itself the type of data type you are using based on how you declare it. It will just, you don't need to specify, but you can equally convert from one type to another by using the class constructor, which is, so this process is known as casting. We are going to see all this when we get hands-on. So in this session now, I hope I've covered the introductory bit of Python. Now at least we can get our hands dirty and see some of the things that we have mentioned. So for this case, allow me to open, okay, basically in Python, to run your programs, you could write your programs on a text file, then ensure that your file ends with a .py extension. Then you can run the program on the terminal. Yeah, a moment as the code editor starts up here. So these are the number of so I'm using my code editor because it makes coding quite easy, because you see it highlights it makes works easier for you, and it's easily readable as opposed to writing code on a text on a notepad file. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So I hope to cover the following: the commented out lists, data types in Python, I've just mentioned, operators in Python, the ternary operators. So little by little, I hope we are going to cover all this. As much as it involves quite a lot, I hope I won't be imposing quite a lot on you guys. I hope you are with me right now. Yeah, so basically, let me start off by showing you how you could run your program on the terminal. So allow me to go to my terminal. So you just type in Python, then the file name. So the file name is pivotclub.py. So pivotclub.py, then you tap enter. Well, my machine is quite slow because of the RAM. I'm trying to optimize its speed, but it seems that it's not executing that fast. So in this case, it has executed the first line. So name, it's pivot club. So I wanted to check if the name is a string. So the above line here is to check whether the name, the variable that I have declared, is a string. So if you want to check if it's a number, you pass in the int data type. But in this case, since I want to confirm whether it's a string, I'll just pass in the string. Yeah, so a lot of the code inside here I've commented it out because I want us to go step by step. So since I saw that the webinar is 1 hour, I decided to like prepare a code so that now when we are tackling some bits, we could highlight, we could uncomment the code and execute so that we can see the logic that of how the program works. So in this case, we have already started out with the data type. So in this case, I've declared a variable name, and I've assigned it the name pivot, denoting our club, pivot club. So here I was checking if the name is a string, of which it is true, because from the terminal it's true. Yeah, so allow me to start out on the operators in Python. So in Python we have a number of operators. To be precise, we have 5 operators. We have the assignment operators, the arithmetic operators, comparison operators, logical operators, and the bitwise operators. So so let us start out on the assignment operators. I don't know why my cursor is freezing. A moment. Okay. Wow. Yeah, okay. So basically, an assignment operator is like you declare a variable and you assign it a value. But we could also create a new variable and assign it to an existing variable. For instance, we have age, we have assigned it the value 8. We could create another variable, for instance, in this case, and assign it to age. So that's the assignment operators. It's that simple. So we have arithmetic operators. So Python has a number of arithmetic operators: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, exponentiation, and the floor division. So we are going to start out by declaring variables. So we're going to declare a variable num and num2. So we want to get the sum. So to get the sum of these two numbers, we're just going to say num1 plus num2, which is going to add the two numbers, and we expect a total of 15. Let's first uncomment out each section, then you're going to run the program and see the output. So to get the difference, you'll take the first number num1, subtract from num2. Yeah, so num1 minus num2. Similar case to the product, you'll multiply num1 and num2. For the division, you'll equally divide num1 slash num2. So this denotes a division. For the modulus, okay, the modulus is basically the remainder, getting the remainder. So in this case, we expect the remainder to be 0, because 10 divided by 5, it goes there 2 times, remainder 0. So we expect a 0. Then this is basically to get the exponent. Like let's say now num1, which is 10 raised to power 2, so we expect 100. Then for the floor, basically you divide. Floor division is like you divide, then you round up, but you're going to see that briefly. So I think we could run the program once again. You could either type in the command on the terminal, or you could select to run Python file in terminal. So it's being interpreted. Yeah. I don't know why it hasn't let me see why it's not printing out. Oh, sorry, I didn't so let's say print the sum, for instance. So in this case it prints the sum to 15, which is true. So for the rest it's going to be true. Basically, let's try out the modulus, because I know that's basic arithmetic and everyone is pretty much familiar with it. Yeah, so you see for the modulus it's 0, because 10 divided by 5, it goes there 2 times and we remain with a 0. So we could also check for the exponent. So let's check for the exponent. So it displays 100, because 10 raised to power 2 is 100. Yeah, so let's also check for the floor. Yeah, so for the floor it's 2. Okay, let's say it is num1. Okay, yeah, it's 2, because 2.0 basically it's rounded down, because 0 is insignificant. Yeah, that's why it printed 2. Yeah, so those are arithmetic operators in Python. So we can move on to the assignment. Okay, let's go back to the assignment operators a bit. I forgot a concept. So in this case we have a variable, the number of years. So instead of having to type let's say years, then you say years is equals to years plus 1. Maybe you could just type in years plus is equals to 1. The third line here is equivalent to the second line. So let's give it a try and see what the output will be on the terminal. So in this case you see, okay, let's see, I don't know, oh, I didn't print the number of years. Sorry. Let's print out the number of years. Keep on forgetting. Yeah, so if we print out the number of years, we're expecting to have 11. Oh, it's 12. I understand why it's 12, because it assumes that in this case. Okay, let's just comment out this. Oh, sorry. Let's run the file again. Yeah, so in this case it's 11. You see, when you pass in this, it will add 10 to 1. Then the new variable that will be assigned, it will be 11, so it will add 11 to 1. Yeah, so basically that's one other bit I forgot in the arithmetic operators. Yeah, it applies, it even applies to the subtraction, multiplication, modulus, and the floor and the division and the floor division. It's applicable to all other arithmetic operators. So next we move on to comparison operators in Python. So for comparison operator, we have the equality sign, the not equal, the greater than, the less than or equal to, and the greater than equal to. So the comparison operators are pretty much used in control statements, the if statements. Yeah, it's pretty much used in this, but also we use it in the while loops. Yeah, so to assign, to compare, basically you're comparing variables. You have a variable num1 and num2. You want to check whether they are equal. So if you check whether this is true, it will it will indicate to you that it's false, because basically num1 is 10 and num2 is 5, so they are not equal. But for the second line, it will show you that it is pretty much true, because 10 is not equal to num2, which is 5. So that comparison operator is quite simple. You just have to test for equality, or whether it's not equal, whether it's greater than or equal to. I know a number of you are familiar with this. Yeah, so the Boolean operators in Python. So also Python gives us the following Boolean operations: not, and or. Also, in this case, you have a condition. Maybe you want to check if a certain condition is true, execute something. So you're going to use Boolean, because you see the value, it's either 0 or 1. Like it's based on those parameters. It's either true or false. So in this case, we could declare a condition. Let's say this is a Boolean. We say condition 1, we set condition 1 to true, then condition 2 to false. So not condition 1 means that it is false, because condition 1 is true. Not condition 1 means, so this is among the Boolean operations, we have the not. So now we are starting out with the not. So not basically negates, it will negate the Boolean, whether it's true or false. If it's true, then it will be false, and if it's false, it will be true. So also condition 1 and condition 2. So I'd like to talk much about the and the or. For those who are familiar with something known as the logic gates, you will understand that, for instance, if you had a control statement and an if statement, where we have said if condition 1 and condition 2, if they happen to be true, execute the following statement. So in this case, in the and, when you have an and, both condition 1 and condition 2 have to be true, so that the statements that follow, the statements in the block, are to be executed. But in the case of the or, either one of the two should be true. So if one of them is true, the statements will still be executed. Yeah, so that revolves around the Boolean operators in Python. So we could check the bitwise operators, but bitwise operators are not used that much in Python, but you can just mention it. So we have the and, the ampersand. So this is the ampersand, which performs a binary add. Then we have this for which performs an or. Then we have this, an XOR operation. Yeah, for those who have done something dealing with logic gates, can understand the XOR and the NOR gates. Yeah, but we are not going to talk much about it, because it's not that much used in Python, but it's quite good to know it. So we are also going to take a look at the is and in Python. So is called the identity operator. So maybe you want to compare two objects and return true if both are same. Maybe let's say it's the condition. So you could just say is condition 1 is condition 2. If condition 1 is not equal to condition 2, then it's going to print a true, because condition 1 is true and condition 2 is false. Yeah, so that's the identity operator is. Then we have the in, membership operator. Maybe you have an item, you have a list of items. You want to loop through this item and perform a certain action. So you can just say for item in items. So this denotes membership. So it's the membership operator. We are going to see how we are going to use it much later on. So also we have ternary operators. Yeah, so basically ternary operators is a way of shortening an if statement. Allow me to talk about this code snippet here, which defines a function, as much as we have not covered functions. So we have a function here is adult, which takes in the argument age. If you're not familiar with age, don't worry, we are going to talk much about it later on. So the function is adult will take in an age, then it will check if the age is greater than 18. If the age is greater than 18, then it will return true, else it will return false. So a way of shortening this to avoid the colon and having all this statement, you can just say define the function, then the function is adult, then you pass in the age, then you say return true if age is greater than 18, else false. So the ternary operator basically is a way of simplifying on how you can define a control statement. Yeah. Somebody has unmuted his mic. Okay. So okay, now we can hop on to strings in Python. And one thing I forgot to mention is that in Python, the data types actually are objects, because you see the data types, for instance, strings, integers, they come in with methods. So we are going to take a look at strings in Python. So if you are pretty new to Python, if you install Python, you'll be able to see a tool known as the IDLE. So when you're starting out in Python, so that you can get to understand how some of these methods work, you can use the IDLE. So when you type in the help function, the help and the type methods, the dir methods. So for instance, the help, it will give you a number of options that you can do to perform. It's like a help toggle where you can query and get some of the things that you want to perform that perhaps you have forgotten and you want to perform. And also the type is used to like get the type of the data type. Yeah, so you can look at this, because it will pretty much help you get some of these methods easier, because when you practice, it will be fun. So in this case, let me start out by declaring a variable member and assigning it the value John. So a string, as I have said, data types in Python are objects because they come in with methods, built-in methods. So a string has a set of built-in methods. So I tried to research on a number of built-in methods that strings have. I managed to assemble all this. I'm sure there are there are others that I left out, but I think these are the pretty much common methods that we are going to be using. So we have the isAlpha, which is to check if a string contains only characters and is not empty. We have the isAlnum to check if a string contains character or digits and is not empty. The isDecimal to check if a string contains digits and is not empty. Then we have the lower to get a lowercase version of a string. Then we have isLower to check if a string is lowercase. Upper to get an uppercase version of a string. isUpper to check if a string is uppercase. And the title to get a capitalized version of a string. So for all who will want to follow along the code in this, I'm going to actually, I have this code in my GitHub repo. In the video that I'm going to post on YouTube, or I'll have the link to the repo there, so you can check out more, because I know there are a number of things that I'm taking it in a hasty manner. It's cause of time. Yeah, so please bear up with me. So I like to test out a number of methods that span around the string, the built-in methods of the string. So we could start out with the lower, which is to check to get a lowercase version. So in this case already it's in lowercase. Let's have it in caps lock. Let's say John. So we comment out the code. So let us run the code and see it print out the lowercase version. So you see it has printed out the lowercase version of the variable member. So we could also get the length of the string member using the len method. So let us run the file and see the length. So it's 4. John has has 4 characters, JOHN. So you can, if you want to get the length of the number of characters in a string, you can use the len function, the len method. So, and if you want to check whether Joe is so here comes in the member operator. We want to check if Joe, the character J and O, if they are in the variable John, the variable member which we assign the value John. So let's see whether it will. So it's saying false. I guess it's because they are in capital letters. Let's see whether it will indicate a true. Yeah, so now it's true because they are all in caps. Yeah, so all these other methods we are I couldn't exhaust all these other methods, but if you find time, you can try work with these other methods, because actually they're pretty straightforward. Lower is lower, upper is upper, title, yeah, it's pretty much self-explanatory, so that will be okay. So there's another concept that I'd like to talk about, which is slicing. And this concept actually is quite important in the field of machine learning, because you're going to be splitting data sets into features and labels. So if you're looking into start out in this field, this is something that you need to understand pretty much well. So in this case, I had already assigned the variable, but there's no problem. So let's say I want to like split the string pivot. I want to like have PIV and leave out OT. So that's slicing. Like you slice a string. So in this case, we say name, and then into brackets we pass in 1 and 1 3. So this one, basically, one thing you should also notice that similar to arrays in other languages like Python and like C++ or any other language, or C, when you have an array, you have items in an array. The first element in the array usually has an index of 0. So this also applies to Python. So in this case, the character P, it has an index of 0, then I1. So from here we are going to get the character I and V, because we have said to start to slice from the first, from here after P till V, because we are not, so this 3 that is here, we don't include the third character. So we are going to have I and V. So let's give it a try and see whether it's going to print out what we're talking about. Let's try and see. Oh, okay. Let's see. It has, okay. I think I need to do this. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, it keeps on freezing. Sorry. Yeah, it's running actually. So you see, if you take a look at the terminal, it has sliced the string pivot into I and V, because you see as I said, the characters in this string, the first character is index 0 and the second character is index 1. So when you indicate 1 to 3, you say that I want you to start to remove the P and start from I, which is the first character, then up to the second bit. Don't include the third character. So that's how slicing works in Python, and that's quite an important feature. Yeah, so we have numbers in Python. We have the integer numbers, the floating point numbers, and the complex numbers. So complex number, for those who are familiar with complex number, you can also have a complex number in Python. For those who remember the J, the imaginary, when you want to get, like, let's say SAD2, you express it into complex number because it's just an imaginary number, so it will be 2 plus 3J. So you can also have a variable which will be a complex number in Python. Yeah, so as I said, numbers, strings, they are all objects because they have methods. So in this case, we have a method to get the real part of this complex number and the imaginary number in this bit. So so built-in functions in Python.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
Ronnie, just to let you know that time is like moving. Yeah.
Okay, give me like 2 minutes to wind up so that I can take in questions. So I think for today I'm going to wind up on I wanted to cover the data structures, but unfortunately time is not on our side because we started 10 minutes late. but it's okay. In the second session, I hope I'll conclude the data structures, and I don't know whether we'll get time to do the hands-on the hands-on the project, the beginners project, which will be building a guessing game, but it's okay. So let me finish it off by talking about constants in Python. So let's say, for instance, you want to create a program that can calculate the area of a circle, and you are creating a variable pi, and you want it to be a constant because pi can't change, which is 3.142. So in Python, there's no way to enforce that a variable should be a constant. You see, if you're coming from languages like C, you could define a variable, and you could define a variable by saying const, then you say pi, then you say 3.142. But in Python, we have a number of ways we can do that. The first one, you can use the enum, but also pretty much when you're going to cover tuples in Python, tuples are immutable. Immutable means that you cannot change them. So if you have values that you think you don't want them to be changed, you can assign them to a tuple. So that's one way. The second way is using the enum. So you could import enum. So there's one thing I'm going to talk about: packages. So the goodness with Python is that it comes in with a number of packages which we are going to so all these modules are found in the Python package index, which we call as pipe. I don't know whether it's pronounced as pipe or pip. Okay, me, I call it pip. So you could install these modules using the from the Python package index. So we'll have to like have a virtual environment, install the module, then from there we can get the module from enum, import enum. So we are going to have this class, we pass in the enum, which most likely is it's a class in the module, the enum, which is going to indicate when you are going to declare this inactive to be 0 and active to be 1. So we are going to have this as constants, they are not going to change. Yeah, so next time when we begin our part 2 series, I hope we're going to start out on using user input in Python, and then we are going to tackle control statements, data structures. Yeah, because I am seeing time is not on my side. Yeah, we had quite a lot to cover, but the other bit that is remaining is not that much. So perhaps right now, Anthony, I could take in some questions.
Sure. Wow. I hope. Hey, I just imagine that everyone is excited as I am to get started.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have someone hold your hand as you start learning. So, yeah, I don't know whether there is anyone who has a question. It's that time when we can ask something. Someone can say something, just a comment. They would be like, "Wow, I have just gotten this site to to learn Amar." Someone can say something.
Even someone could make a suggestion that we could continue.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
let's push it to 9 p.m.
yeah, if it's okay with everyone, I'll have no problem.
Ronnie,
Yeah. Hello, Abraham.
good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening, Abraham. How are you doing?
So I'm doing fine. So from my side,
Yeah.
from the presentation, I'm having a comment.
Uh-huh.
The presentation was excellent. Big up on that. And then maybe just to add on the same,
Yeah.
for those who are coming from other languages and then you are coming to Python, indentation is key in Python. I think that's all.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, actually, that's a very vital point brought in by Abraham. Yeah, indentation is pretty much quite essential. You see, now when you're declaring classes, the functions, you have to, whatever is indented below wherever you have defined the function, Python will know that this is a block. So you must take note of that. Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm seeing some message from Gregory saying, nice presentation. Yeah, my pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Abraham. Thank you so much, Ronnie, because I'm sure so many people have gotten the site to start off. And maybe to remind people to sign in, there's a form that is on the chat, so don't forget to sign in your attendance. I'd like to invite Greg to say something. Is Greg around? Okay,
I think he's around.
he's around. Greg.
Okay, so Greg is saying that he's in a noisy place.
Oh, he can speak.
Yeah, he can speak. He's in a noisy place.
Okay, well, I'll invite. Who is on the call? I saw Shadrach or Abigail. Can say something.
Hi everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for joining the meeting. I hope you have learned a lot. I also want to um, ask you guys to make sure that you join us in the next meeting so that you learn more, so that you continue the knowledge